And when you say arrested, do you mean you were actually cuffed and put in a police cruiser?
Correct. I was handcuffed.
For walking on a beach?
I was handcuffed. My belongings were taken, and I was held in a jail cell for about an hour and a half until I could speak with duty counsel.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Cobourg, Ontario. And folks, I am with Tamara and wow, this might be one of the most incredible Fight the Fines case that Rebel News has taken on. You are not going to believe what happened to Tamara and one of her friends. I believe exactly 2 weeks from this Saturday, Tamara, you were down here near the beachfront of Cobourg. It's a beautiful beach. And what happened?
A friend and I decided, a hot day like today, we were very overheated. So we decided to take a leisurely stroll through our beautiful Great Lakes shoreline. We entered the pier as some exhibitors did today, and about halfway through became harassed, per se, by a bylaw officer.
Now, there's a huge sign here. There's other signs. Beach closed, entry prohibited. Nobody on the beach unless you take a census of the seagulls, of course. So did you know that maybe you were in contravention of a bylaw by walking here?
So there actually isn't any bylaw in effect here in the town of Cobourg. My understanding was that I was exercising my freedom of mobility to stroll the shoreline.
Indeed, you sent along to me via email some land surveys, and I believe the border of the town, if I've got this right, it's where the lifeguard stations are, these huts along the beach. And basically when you go further than that and into the water, that is no longer town of Cobourg land. So was that the basis on which you thought you were home free by doing this?
Correct. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of gray area in terms of who or if anyone actually owns these shorelines. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. Maybe there can be some more definitions, black and white, happening there.
Okay. Now back to your story. The bylaw officer approaches you and your friend, and what is the nature of the discussion?
Right, so he asks us to come toward him and discuss what we were doing. So we happily obliged. We were cooperative, peaceful. My friend and I, Joyce, she was here earlier. She's a 60-year-old woman, so you can imagine the two of us are quite the threatening pair. And at that point, there was some backup called.
He was calling for backup for the two of you.
Because there's no bylaw, so a bylaw officer has no real authority here. So he called for some backup, I guess, because we were acting so unlawfully, strolling a shoreline, and we were very threatening. Which is sarcasm, for the record. And so, you know, the officer and I went back and forth a little bit, and she called.
And please tell me the nature of the back and forth discussion, Tamara. Was the officer saying, I'm going to write you up for one of those $880 tickets? Was she asking for identification? How did it pan out?
Right, so they basically wanted to, yes, hit us with a fine, to which I refused to receive because I was well within my rights. And my friend did receive the fine, but however, because I refused, the officers and I went back and forth for a few minutes, and eventually I was arrested despite not receiving any feedback as to whether or not I was actually facing an arrestable offense.
And when you say arrested, do you mean you were actually cuffed and put in a police cruiser?
Correct. I was handcuffed.
For walking on a beach?
I was handcuffed. My belongings were taken, and I was held in a jail cell for about an hour and a half until I could speak with duty counsel.
I find this staggering, folks, and Tamara, because we have seen throughout the Wuhan virus being played out these last several months, correctional facilities releasing violent criminals so that social distancing is maintained. You walk on an empty beach, unless you include the seagulls, and you get arrested, handcuffed, put in a police car, and put in a cell. I mean, I can't connect the dots here.
Right. And also on that note, neither can I, because in Cobourg here specifically, we've had no COVID cases since the end of April. We've had no COVID-19 deaths. So these restrictions and further impositions are entirely unjustified. These are not demonstrably justifiable, and this is a huge overreach into our civil liberties and rights and freedoms.
And tell me, even if, and I mean, in the court of law, everything will play out when it comes to what the boundaries are, what the bylaw is, and whatnot. But even if there was a hard and entrenched bylaw here that said you cannot go on this beach, why? I mean, it's acres and acres of empty beach, and yet we see on this very day a street festival where there's hundreds of people on concrete and asphalt. That is evidently okay. We have a trailer park. You can see it just behind us, bumper to bumper trailers. That's okay. I mean, I'm trying to make sense of this all, Tamara.
Yeah, you and me both. I'd be really interested to know where the people from that trailer park are coming from if the intention here was to keep the others away.
You know, again, folks, we've come across more than a dozen Fight the Fines cases. I particularly think this is one of the most egregious ones yet. Two people, law-abiding citizens, walking on a deserted beach and to be treated like violent criminals. And it's even questionable in terms of the boundaries of the town and whether the bylaw is indeed in effect on the shoreline. You know, Tamara, I'm sure our viewers are equally perturbed by what happened to you and your friends. So I'm so happy. I understand you've reached out to our legal eagle, Sam Goldstein. He is going to represent you. I mean, Sam Goldstein, I can tell you, top-notch criminal lawyer. He's a bencher. He is going to fight for justice, because I think what happened to you, bylaw or no bylaw, I think it was completely unjustified.
Yes, and thank you, Rebel News, for that, because we need to put the end to this hypocrisy of the new normal.
Indeed we do. It is hypocrisy. It is, I guess, politicians, including local ones in little towns like Cobourg, clamping down on our rights and freedoms. Even if you have a bylaw, it doesn't trump the Constitution. And exit question, Tamara. This is the theme we seem to come across all across Canada, is that it's almost as though politicians of all stripes, of all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, they've gotten a taste of almost totalitarian power with these coronavirus rules, and they kind of like the taste, and they don't want to give up that drink.
Right. Well, as we know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's time for we, the people, to be back in charge, because we have all the rights.
Well, there you have it. Another one for the fightthefines.com file. And by the way, folks, like Tamara, if you have some egregious story that has occurred to you in the name of safety due to the Wuhan virus, if you've had your rights taken away from you, please go to fightthefines.com, reach out to us. We'll look at your case. If it has merit, we will also get you in touch with a top-notch lawyer so you don't have to pay a cent regarding the fine itself or your legal representation. Okay, I'm with our Toronto criminal lawyer extraordinaire, Sam Goldstein. And Sam, I want to ask you, what's your take on the way in which the state, right now in July 2020, is handling these Wuhan virus charges?
Well, I was just surprised to learn, David, that they're still charging people underneath these social distancing laws. I think when you go outside, you see so many people are just simply ignoring the law. And I think that's for two reasons. One is, not so long ago, we had all these demonstrations and people just weren't social distancing. No one was being arrested. And secondly, things are getting better. We see that the government is moving into phase 2, contemplating phase 3 in some areas. And thirdly, we were initially told that we shouldn't wear masks. Now we're told that we have to wear masks. I think that in the public, there's an erosion of the moral authority of the laws. And so I'm just surprised that the government continues to try and enforce many of these social distancing laws.
And Sam, what do you make of Tamara's case in specific? I mean, to me, it looked like somebody using a bazooka to kill a mosquito. I mean, for goodness sake, she's alone with a friend on a deserted beach. Where was the safety threat? And especially when we visited Cobourg last Saturday for a protest, the town had closed the streets to car traffic for a big open air bazaar, if you will. And there were hundreds of people that came out. So to me, it struck me as weird. In Cobourg, it's okay to congregate in the hundreds on asphalt and concrete, but not on a sandy beach.
Well, I think there you've just proven my earlier point that there's just an erosion of the moral authority of our public leaders when they allow for some sort of gathering of 100 people or something in the street, but yet when people go to a sandy beach, they're suddenly being pursued for social distancing laws. We just do not have consistent messaging coming out from our political leaders, and that causes confusion among the public. And again, as I said, it leads to an erosion of their moral authority. So now we continue to have many of these laws still on the books, so to speak, and people have to be careful about what they're doing, despite the fact I think many people are confused as to what they can do and can't do.
Well, Sam, I got to tell you, I think of all the cases we've covered, this is truly one of the most egregious one. And like I said to Tamara, I can't think of a better lawyer in her corner to represent her than you.
Thank you, David.
Folks, if you had one of those ridiculous Wuhan virus $880 bylaw tickets, well, don't pay it. Don't get your own legal counsel. Reach out to us at fightthefines.com. That's fightthefines.com. And if we think your case has merit, we will get you in touch with one of our top-notch criminal lawyers, and we will fight that fine for you.